everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share my tips and tricks for you when it comes to hand lettering. Let's first start out with the supplies that you need. My favorite pens for lettering are the first two brush pens, which are from the brand Tombow. If you don't have any brush pens, you can also use fineliners or ballpoint pens. Anyway, here are some quick swatches of the pen so you can see the difference between them. The size of the brush affects also the size of your lettering. If you are not using brush pens, you can achieve a similar look with Faux calligraphy, and I will go over that near the end of this video. Besides brush pens, I like to do monoline lettering with pigma micron fineliners, and I will talk about that later as well. If you are a beginner and don't own any brush pens yet, I would highly recommend the Tombow fudenosuke pen, and I'm using one with hard tip as I have quite a heavy hand when it comes to writing. Let's quickly go over the difference between cursive and hand lettering. I'm first writing out in cursive. The goal here is that you don't lift the pen from the paper so you can write faster. I'm using the same amount of pressure for each stroke so the thickness of the line doesn't really vary. With hand lettering, however, you make thin upstrokes and thick downstrokes by changing the pressure. As you can see, I'm also lifting the pen from the paper quite often. Lettering takes a bit more time, and I actually sped up this footage a little bit, but I'm going to show you some real-time lettering soon. The first step when it comes to brush lettering is to practice the up and down strokes. These are the upstrokes, and when you make them, try to make them as light as possible. Next I'm making some downstrokes, and as you can see I push the pen harder to the paper to create a thicker line. Here you can see better how the brush tip bends when I give it more pressure. The most difficult part for me was to connect the up and down strokes. I would recommend making these kinds of practice strokes as I'm showing here, as it really helps when you move on to writing letters and words. You can also rotate the pen between the strokes. To make the difference between up and down strokes more clear, I used light color for upstrokes and darker color for downstrokes. This will hopefully help you to get the idea where you should give the pen more pressure when writing out letters or words. This takes a little bit of practice, and I found the upstrokes more difficult at first. To demonstrate the strokes, I drew some arrows so you can see even more clearly the difference between them. The next step after learning the strokes is to learn the alphabet. When I started my hand lettering journey, I searched different fonts on Pinterest and started to practice them. I learned cursive handwriting in elementary school, but I never really liked how it looked, so I changed up some letters. Stay tuned till the end of the video where I will show you how my lettering has changed during these years. Anyway, as you can see, there are many different ways to write each letter, and I would encourage you to try out different styles and see what feels the most comfortable for you. I have been told that my letter S looks like number 5, so I struggle with making the second S of these 3 examples. That's why I always do it without the upper curve. After you have tried out different lettering styles, you can choose which ones you prefer. I'm now going to show you the alphabet that I do, as some of you have been interested in seeing that. The first letters are in real time, but I speed up the footage a little bit because I'm very slow at writing. If you struggle with messy handwriting or lettering, I would highly recommend slowing down your writing speed, as that can make a huge difference. As you can see, my letters have quite a lot of loops, and I like to extend some of the downstrokes. Some people speak about bouncy lettering, where the baseline of the letter varies, but I usually keep it more steady and make it look more interesting with the extended downstrokes. By the way, I'm now using a Tombow fudenosuke hard tip pen, as that's the pen I use the most often, especially when I'm bullet journaling. It's perfect for small lettering, which I like to do, and it's also easier to control than the Tombow dual brush pens, for example. If you are a beginner and wonder which pen you should get to start out, I would highly recommend this one. Anyway, if you are a beginner and don't own any brush pens yet but would like to start practice lettering, you can do Faux calligraphy, which looks very similar to brush lettering. The difference is that you shouldn't make the lines thicker by pressing hard with your pen, because that will ruin your pens. Instead, you will draw a line next to the downstrokes, and you can also color in the blank area like I'm doing soon. You can also do monoline lettering like I did for the Faux calligraphy header. With monoline lettering, you should keep the same amount of pressure when writing and lift the pen from the paper more often. It's like hand lettering but without adding pressure. Next, we are moving on to writing words. As I said earlier, you should lift the pen from the paper more often when you are hand lettering. This really helps with making thinner upstrokes, as you can rotate the pen and adjust your grip. I usually lift the pen after each letter, but sometimes I lift it in the middle of the letter as well. The letter H is a good example of that, as you can see. With normal handwriting, you would go up on the downstroke with letters like H, P and N. When you are hand lettering, you should lift the pen from the paper instead, so it's easier to control the strokes. Here you can see another example and when I lift the pen. This quote is a gentle reminder that the most important way to improve or learn hand lettering is to practice. That's the only way to learn a new skill, and try not to compare yourself to others when you are just starting out. Bullet journaling has been a good way to practice lettering, and I first practiced on blank piece of paper by writing out Finnish curse words because I was so frustrated. Anyway, as I promised, here's my first ever bullet journal cover page, and as you can see, my lettering looks quite different. At the time I used a fineliner and had no idea where I should make the lines thicker to achieve the Faux calligraphy look. I wrote with cursive I had learned in school. Here's my bullet journal from June 2018, when I bought my first brush pens. The earlier notebook was from November 2017. I started practicing lettering, and you can definitely see a difference when you compare my June and July cover pages. I learned what the up and down strokes meant, and you can tell them apart. Hopefully, seeing where I started gives some inspiration and motivation for you. By practicing, you will improve, and if you do it regularly, you can see results quite quickly. In August, I tried making my lettering more bouncy and also added some lines for shading. Here you can see how much progress I made in 1 year. This looks quite similar to my lettering nowadays, but I don't put as much pressure on the downstrokes anymore. Hope you found this video helpful and got some inspiration for your own lettering journey. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye!